Oh, yeah. So you want to LS swap something, and you want to build something badass because it's got a LS motor in it. What next? I'll tell you what's next. So before you start your LS swap and just dive into it, you're going to have to ask yourself a whole plethora of questions. I want to take you through this one step at a time here on how to LS swap something completely from start to finish. And before we even get going, for one, you have to pick a candidate. Do you already have the vehicle? Do you want to get something to put an LS motor in? Do you have the motor ahead of time before you even have a vehicle? So that is some of the questions you're going to have to ask yourself right off the bat. And this is a 69 Olds Cutlass right here, A-body. And there's a whole myths and internet misinformation about how some of these LS motors just drop right into these. Some of them don't fit. And you can go back through some of my other videos here and I'll show you how to make this fit right here for this particular swap and follow this along. But before you even get into doing an LS swap, here is my list right here, and pardon the absolute horrible penmanship. I'm just writing down things as I can think about them, and it tends to get a little bit disorganized as I think of more stuff. So the biggest thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to do your research. This is the most important step of your LS swap. It is going to set the tone for how well this is going to go for you, or how horribly wrong this is going to go for you. And it's absolutely impertinent that you take a couple of minutes and ask yourself and write these down, these questions. Okay, what oil pan is it going to take? What front drive accessories is it going to take? What intake works well with this particular swap? What throttle body? Are we going to go with a drive-by cable or drive-by wire? What transmission am I going to use? What headers fit? Do I have a transmission cross member that I can modify or make work? Or is it something that I can get even aftermarket? So also, some of the other questions, you're going to need to do some research on forums and different groups. Is there interference for the steering shaft to come through to the steering box? Are you going to keep the steering box? Are you going to swap it over and do rack and pinion? So is there interference with the brake booster? Do I want to do carbureted or EFI? Some people do it in stages where they think that it's a lot cheaper to do it with a carburetor, so they do that right away and then switch to EFI later and spend double the amount of money. So am I going to run an external pump, or is the pump going to be in the tank? What speedometer am I going to use? The factory? Do I want to make that look right and period correct and everything? Well, keep this in mind. An LS motor, if you're going to swap into any given transmission, that's a 4L60, 4L80, they're all electronically shifted, orientated, so that means they have a digital signal that goes for your speedometer. So you're going to need a digital speedometer in order to use a 4L60, 4L80 or such. So if you do that, are you going to put a digital dash in it? Okay, then now we just added the expense of the digital dash and plus the transmission. And what else do we need to adapt whether we're going to run power steering, rack and pinion, where are we going to mount the ECU? How about AC? Are you going to run AC? Are you going to run electric fans? Where are you going to mount the ECU? What mods does it take to get this to fit? And there is so much information on swapping just about anything nowadays. When I started doing this in 2006, there wasn't beans available for anything. The swap stuff, plus the computers, wiring harnesses, so I had to figure all of that stuff out on my own. Luckily, there's a lot of aftermarket modifications and stuff now that you can get just about anything that you want, but the planning is everything. So the more planning you do, the less of a pain this is going to be, and the less it's going to cost. And one of the things that I kind of skipped over right away actually here is, before you get too far into it, I want you to do this. Know the purpose of what you're doing here. What exactly are you going to do with this car? Are you going to autocross it? Are you going to road race it? Is it going to be a street brawler? Is it something you just want for a cruiser? These are the kind of questions that if you ask yourself and answer those in number one, you're going to help yourself tremendously later on in the process, because everything that goes along with it, like the wiring harness and the throttle body and the pedal, all of that can be answered with question number one, and it can make a colossal change in direction and a lot more money if you don't answer these questions right off the bat. More questions that you have to ask yourself: are going to run electric fans? What other modifications to make it fit? What injectors do I want to run? Can I run a kit? Or what is the look that you're going for? And before we get to question number two, you have to sit and ponder all of these questions on step number one first. Because if you don't, you're going to end up spending twice the amount of money. You're going to redo a whole bunch of stuff. Before you get to step two, you need to answer all of those questions, and even some of them. What is the purpose of it? Oh, I just want a street cruiser. But all of a sudden that starts evolving into, well, I want a street cruiser, but I want 550 horsepower. Then the transmission choice is going to change. If you're going to run an automatic transmission, I would not run a 4L60 transmission if you want 550 horsepower. I would upgrade to a 4L80 transmission. So those questions that you're going to ask yourself, and write down those answers and everything for step one, before you get too far into it at all, you're going to want to get those questions answered before you get farther than that, because this is a very, very important thing. And now, before we even get to step two, realize this is going to cost you a lot more than you think it's going to. There is a lot of internet misinformation out there on how much it costs to LS swap things. Are you a guy that can just pull a motor out of a junkyard and be happy with the way that it looks and throw it in there and hope for the best and hope that it's going to end up running good and everything? Or are you a person that wants this done right? You want to build a badass build, and you're going to go through the motor. The biggest thing with choosing your motor, transmission, front drive accessories, everything, we're going to move right into step number two. Choosing your motor, transmission, front drive accessories and stuff. I've had quite a few people talking and asking me, what's the best LS motor for my particular swap that I'm going to do? What's the most reliable? And that answer is so loaded, And that answer is what's the best motor for your swap is really going to be dependent on your budget. For one, your budget is going to be a huge playing factor and how what you can use and what is available for you. So if your budget is $5,000 for your LS swap, well, good luck with that is what I say, because you are going to have a whole lot more money into it than you think you're going to. And it doesn't take very long before you'll find out in a big hurry that all this stuff adds up. So between your computer, your wiring harness, and now is where it really spirals out of control. And let me tell you this, you have to realize you are in deep. As long as we're here list grows big time. Now you pull the motor out. Well, be kind of nice to clean the motor bay up, paint some things. Oh, I noticed the steering is all the boots on the tie rods are all dry rotted and the steering is sloppy. Well, it'd be kind of senseless not to do it right now. The motor's out and you can get at everything really easily now. You can get at all your control arms. Do you want to replace those? Well, very good possibility. You're going to want to replace those like we did here. We replaced those and then we also painted the front cross member. We painted the frame rails and everything as well. We also have some more modifications. We're going to do the firewall and stuff also. But when you get into it like this, all of a sudden it's okay, add disc brakes to it and a new brake booster. In this particular case, the master cylinder was leaking and we had to replace the master cylinder. It had leaked into the brake booster and that was really rusty and corroded and stuff as well. Our rear wheel cylinders for our drum brakes were leaking at the same time. So it just kind of made sense to swap out and put disc brakes on it and all new front end components completely on it. So all new upper and lower control arms, new ball joints, new steering, all of that has happened before we even started doing the LS swap. So this is what I want you guys to realize. You're in deep here. You are in deep. And the list, as long as we're here, just grows exponentially. It doesn't take very long to throw another couple $1,000s into doing some painting, some wiring, some exhaust system modifications, firewall modifications. You have to also, at this point, understand that you need to start choosing some of these things. Am I going to run AC on it? Is that going to be stage 2, or can I do it all right now? Because that kind of stuff is going to come into play before you order your wiring harness and stuff. Because you can get your wiring harness set up for a trinary switch, so your AC trips your fans on and everything too. Are you going to run electric fans? Do you need to run electric fans? A lot of times you do, because there's not enough room for a regular fan set up in the front. And what front drive accessories are going to work for you? That just spirals out of control so fast, it doesn't take very long before you're adding a digital dash, you're adding different drive shaft, gas tank, dual pumps. And now, at this point, 3.5, what you're going to need to do is double your budget. You already blew it out of the water on what you thought it was going to cost. And now, what you need to do is beg your wife for more money for this project. And that is all going to happen before step number 4, we start to mock everything up. You're going to need more money before you get to that point, because you're going to need it. And now, with step number 4, we're going to locate the motor, transmission, and and your choice of whether you bolt it in, weld it in, what tunnel modifications need to do, like we had to do on this also. A lot of tunnel modifications to make this fit and work, but it's completely possible with a little bit of a modification from a hammer. So that is completely possible. Not a whole lot of welding involved there. But then you also need to figure out cooling lines for the transmission. Are we going to run a tranny cooler? Are you going to run an oil cooler? And clearance for headers, steering shaft. You're going to check all of that stuff out on whether or not this is going to just bolt right in there, or we're going to need to do a bunch of modifications to it. So then we finally get to step number 5. We're only on step number 5 here. And you're already asking your wife for more money, and you've doubled your budget. Moving forward, now you get the motor in there, you check for interference, tunnel modifications, steering, O2 sensor locations. Want to add a tuning bung to the exhaust so you can plug in a wideband sensor and everything to it. Now is the time to do that. We get the motor and transmission located and everything where we want it with the front drive accessories on it. Now, what do we have for hood clearance? What do we have for room under the hood? What intake manifold can we use? And that also can determine what front drive accessories that you're going to use. So there is a whole lot of stuff and a lot more questions than answers than you need to do right now. And a lot of times like this, we had to redo all our brake lines and everything. Well, it just makes sense to redo the brake lines before that motor and the headers and all that stuff are in there, and we can access it way, way, way easier and everything right now. So I'm going to clip this off right now at number 6. Our number 6, we're going to plan it out. Okay, you've already mocked it up. Nothing is set in stone. You can still pull it out. You can still change things and everything. But now is the point in time where you're going to start planning it out big time. So before you even order the wiring harness, before you get a motor, before you get, maybe you got a mock-up motor in here right now, which is a good idea. And if not, if you already have a motor and you have the front drive accessories, you have the everything that you think is going to work in here, you've probably already changed that right about now. By the time you've mocked things up in here and you find out that the truck oil pan hangs down way too far, the truck intake manifold won't fit under the hood, the truck front drive accessories don't work with the steering box because they interfere with the steering box. This is why step number 1 is so important, to ask all of those questions before you start really getting into it. And you're going to save yourself a lot of time and money in the meantime if you could plan it out a little bit better by doing your research. I hope this is helping you guys, and we're going to take you through step by step of how we do this and what the best ways to go about it for us are. And I hope you guys can learn and grow from that and understand that LS swaps don't cost $5,000. They cost a lot more than that. There's a lot more involved to it, but we're going to take you through step-by-step process of that. Stay tuned. We got a lot more coming up. I hope you guys are enjoying the ride so far. Don't forget to check out some of our videos that we've already posted on pulling stuff, these LS motors apart, what to look for, how to tell them apart, how to tell the different front drive accessories, intake manifolds, and everything as well. Lots of information there for you guys to learn. And let's build something badass and do a LS swap together. How about that? We got a lot more coming up. Stay tuned, guys. Don't forget to like, click, subscribe, give me a comment, ring the bell. You want notifications for when we got new videos coming out. We got a lot more stuff coming up, guys, and I can't wait to start throwing this thing together and showing you what these LS motors are all about. Stay tuned for more. Don't forget to like this video. Click like, throw me a comment, let me know what you think. Ring the bell for those notifications when we get a new video. We got lots more coming up, guys. A lot of cool stuff coming up. I hope you guys are enjoying the ride.